My name is Jeff St Laurent. This is the live Tuesday call. Welcome as always, and we'll get some good topic today in terms of how to get new coaching clients, and really want to work through that process with people so they can really start to understand how it happens, the conversations, and the qualification part of it. So it's so super important that we understand how to do that and increase the odds of what we're doing already in terms of getting leads, driving traffic, and so forth and so on. Before we roll into that, just a couple things. I'm recording the calls as always. I post them on Fridays in my university. So if you go to my website, sellingcoaching.com, you can check out the university there. I've got the calls. I've got some other great education there. Use the search bar. I always recommend, type in some keywords that you're looking for. It's very easy to get lost, just like on the internet, looking at stuff. So find out what's relevant for you right now in terms of what you require the most, and put your efforts in learning those aspects there. Another thing is I got a private Facebook group. If you are unaware of that, I'd highly recommend you at least check it out. Same thing on my website, sellingcoaching.com. Right at the top, you'll see a little bar that says join my private Facebook group. Come on over there. We got some great stuff going on. I love it because we get to interact with people on a much deeper level than, for instance, email. So that's why I love that group, for the interaction and what you can contribute and what I can contribute to you as well. So check the private Facebook group out as well. And then lastly, I am available for one-on-one mentoring or my group mentoring program. So if you find yourself in a place where I want more guidance, things, whether they're not working or you're just starting off and you're thinking like, I don't want to have to figure this out on my own, or I'm having trouble with that, talk to me and we'll see where you best fit, or if it's a fit, and if the timing is right. Again, on my website, Selling Coaching, you can just go to the Work With Me page, and then you can go down to the bottom and fill that form out there, and then I'll just get back to you and we can figure out what works best. In terms of today's topic, how to get new coaching clients. Coaching clients and getting clients obviously is like really the hottest topic as a coach, because you become a coach, you get certified if you go through the school or whatever, and then now you're out there and it's like, well, now what do I do? How do I go about this process? And there's so many different methods, if you will, or different strategies in terms of how you want to get them. But I always like to focus on like the fundamentals of the coaching clients, fundamentals of getting them, and no like fancy stuff. Not when I say fancy stuff, there's a lot of things you can do to get leads, but I want to help you understand the selling process, and that's the biggest aspect of it in the qualification process. And really, once you start to understand that more, that's where this process is going to become a lot. You can do it with a lot more ease, and that's the biggest. Can be a lot of anxiety around selling. There can be a lot of anxiety around and fears around not wanting to push people too hard, too fast, or not doing it right, or upsetting somebody. And sometimes in the clients that I work with, I find people are often too timid around the situation, or they approach and avoid, but more often than not avoid the approach because they really don't either know what to say, or the fear that they're just going to get a no, or they're going to upset someone and they're going to push them away. So we want to answer some of the questions of not only how do we get clients, but how do we know if they're interested or not? How do we know for sure? How do we ask without feeling pushy or salesy? How and when do we give out a complimentary session? And how do we increase our chances that they'll actually hire us at the end of that session? That's the point of this. And so if we could break this like into phases, the first phase I'd say is starting the conversation, and I could say starting the conversation can come from, if I can categorize it and say it's like lead generation, meaning our whole object to our business is to, with whatever marketing we're doing, right? There's free and paid marketing. Paid marketing, for instance, like Facebook ads, we were talking before the call started as an example of paid marketing. And then the free marketing is things that you see me do a lot, like this Tuesday call, the recordings that I do, the stuff that I'm doing in my private Facebook group, things like that. That's it, I call that free education-based marketing, because I'm helping people. I'm getting out there, and through that process, I interact with people, and they can become my clients down that avenue. So I'm not going to get into the specific types of marketing today. Just understanding that whatever we're doing, we've got to be driving traffic. And when I say driving traffic, right, that means we're sending people, let's say, to a specific location. It could be a landing page, it could be your website, but whatever that is that we have lead capture. Ultimately, we're looking to create an email list, an email community, and that's above and beyond any social media platform. So even though, for instance, I have a private Facebook group, I have my email list, and I like to, like I say, my community, and that's first and foremost my priority because I can't trust that social media is never going to change or go away or do anything. So while that's a fantastic place to be, like a Facebook group, for instance, I always want to make sure that I have as many of those people on my email community as possible. So if that ever goes away or something changes, I'll always be able to be able to be in connection with those people. And so the first phase, if you will, of getting new clients is sharing and speaking your message, whether it's live events, face-to-face, online networking, written video, audio, ads, things like that. So again, that's at free and paid advertising. And what that does is that creates interest. So if you're not doing any of that stuff right now, the easiest place to start is, like, for instance, writing a post, right? Writing an email. Start with, in terms of an email list and getting your message out there. If you have nobody, start with your friends and family. Get them onto an email platform like Aweber, for instance, which I recommend, and start sending emails 2-3 times a week around some different thoughts or topics that you want to start speaking about. It's starting to get your message out there. Then take those emails, take those thoughts, post them on your Facebook page, post them, let's say if you want to start a Facebook group. That's going to start creating, sharing your message and start creating some interest. That's what we're ultimately, hopefully, starting to drive traffic, if you will, because people will start to read, watch, listen to that stuff, and hopefully they'll be interested in what you're sharing, and then ideally they want to know more. Now, obviously, that means wherever we're taking them to, for instance, like a website, there's got to be some form of lead capture. If you don't have it set up, don't let that stop you right now. Just know that you really want to start creating that, in conjunction with this as soon as possible. So when they go there, there's an attractive offer that says, hey, like mine, for instance, the Ultimate Startup Guide for New Coaches, something that's attractive so that when they are there, they're like, oh, wow, this is great. For instance, like my private Facebook group, another option. It's another form of lead capture where they can become a part of my community, if you will. And again, any type of lead capture, the whole objective to that is now they're in your community, you have access to them, meaning you can be in front of them on demand versus maybe however they found you in the first place might have been just random. It could have been scrolling somewhere online, or they might have just heard about a live event that you were doing and they end up going to that because they were interested in it. But now you can be in front of them on demand. So either way, from there, with all we're doing, the objective to it is beginning to start conversations and building relationships. That's the biggest thing about that. So of the primary part of my day outside of like coaching clients and things like this, and administrative task stuff or any of the marketing activities that I'm doing, like I said, sharing videos, things like that, interacting with my Facebook group, the majority of my hours each week are spent in creating these conversations. And that's that first phase of getting new clients, is if you want to increase the amount of clients that you have, you need to be in front of more people every week. In other words, you need to be speaking your message live, in person or virtually, in front of more people each week. And as a result of those conversations, as a result of that work of you sharing your message, you're creating conversations. So if you're doing a live event face-to-face, it's interacting with the people that attended that event. I talked about one of my great clients on the call who started the meetup group, and a couple months later, having 8 to 10 people every meetup group and having over 200 people and counting in the group. And it's every time someone joins, I'm working with her on, let's interact with these people, welcome them, ask them what their motivation for attending, find out why they're there, start to create conversations. People that come to the live events, during you're finding out about them, where they're at, what they're going for, what they need, the timing of that need, so you can find out, where potentially could I work with them, could they benefit? How could they value from me working as their coach if they were to hire me? And that's what these conversations are about. Through however you're interacting with these people, they're liking a video you did, they're making a comment on social media, especially if you don't have a lot going on, even people just liking something, on a social media platform like Facebook, you can find out who that person who liked it is. You can stalk them on Facebook and find out, their profile, and you can send them a message, and you can say, hey, I noticed you liked my video or my article on blah, 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 I'm curious, what did you like about it, or what did you receive from it? So, I mean, even starting with those types of things, you've got to start generating these conversations. And in these conversations, I want you to think is, the intention is not to get them to hire you as your coach. The intention is not to, sell them something, right? Obviously, if that were to work out that way, that would be fantastic, right? We want business, we want to help people, but I don't want you to think that's my intention, right? Our intention is we want to genuinely get to know them, who they are. Ideally, they've reacted or they've been exposed to something we're putting out there. So if they're doing that, that means they're somewhat interested in, or they are interested, they've got something on in their life where what we're teaching or talking about or sharing is relevant and specific to them, especially if you've narrowed down, who you're helping with what specifically in your target market in terms of what specific outcome you're helping people with. Like I help coaches transition to a full-time business. So the people that are going to be attracted to my message, I know, are coaches, or they want to be coaches, and they have some ambition of doing it business, at least full-time or maybe even on a part-time level, right? So the interaction has a natural progression in terms of me talking about, well, hey, what, if they reacted to something or they attended an event, like, well, what did you receive from that? So someone who might who calls into this, and then they have some reactions on the Facebook. If you notice, I will post in my private Facebook group after some of the names that attended. I'll tag those people, and I'll, hey, what did you receive from the call today? What stood out for you? What did you take away from the call? And I could follow up with those people, especially if I don't know them and I want to get to understand a little bit more about where they're at. It's a great way of starting to say, tell me a little bit more about, why is this so important to you right now in your world? What are you doing in your coaching business where this is relevant for you? In the back of our mind, what I want you to be thinking with these conversations is I want you to be thinking, where's the need for this person right now? What is it that they're going after or that they want so badly right now to do? What is it that they're challenged with or struggling with? And how bad is it? In other words, how bad is it and how badly they want it? That's the most important piece. And typically, like I said, it's around an area that we can assist them with. But the objective to it is we've got to identify that need. This is where selling coaching begins, is identifying, and those students of mine will hear me say this all the time, identifying the need that someone has, and then the timing of that need. So ultimately, through the questions in this conversation we're starting to ask, yeah, we can learn things about them. We can learn, hey, where you're from, and blah, blah, blah. But also I want to know, like, well, what are you going for right now? If they're reacting to something, what was it about the conversation or the call or the event that stood out for you? And why is that so relevant for you right now? What are you going after? And then how important is that you achieve that right now? Why is now the right time for you to go after this? How long have you been wanting something like this for? And it's what's different about today than last week or last year or last month, where now's the time where you're attacking this. And if those things check out, right, that's when we can start to make an approach, right? So we want to start to understand that if I back up just a little bit from there, in the phase where people start reacting and we're starting to create those conversations and we're starting to ask some of these questions, right? We want to start understanding when they start asking us questions, that's a telltale sign that they might be interested in learning more. I actually did a full call on this not too long ago, is entitled "How to Tell if Someone's Really Interested in Coaching or Not," and we kind of went over maybe some of the questions, like if someone's saying, tell me more about what you do as a coach, or how much do you charge, right? Those are the questions that people start to ask. Those are some telltale signs that they might be interested in learning more about that. And as I said there, is like, let's not answer these questions. Let's not just go right into, well, here's what I charge, or here's what my coaching packages are. Just be like, hey, you know what, I'd love to tell you more about that. Give me an idea of why you're asking, or tell me, you know, I'm curious, why do you ask? You know, get an idea of what they're looking for. That's like the classic, you know, sell me this pen in selling, right? People are like, oh, sell me this pen. Most people go down the direction of, oh, you know, this is the greatest pen in the world, or this can write upside down, or, you know, this is signed by whatever, you know, and they start talking about all these features and why this pen is so awesome, and they're trying to sell someone the pen. That's the typical selling route that people want to avoid. That's what we don't want to be like, right? Because it doesn't take into account why that person might be in the market for the pen, or why they need a pen, and why is now so important that they need a pen, right? So that's what we're doing here, is we're not selling the coaching in terms of trying to sell it, but we're rather saying, you know, in the pen example, is it's like, well, what has you in the market for a pen? You know, what has you needing this right now? And, you know, why is it so important to you right now? And, you know, so we're finding out that timing and that need. So never underestimate the value of taking the time to qualify somebody in this process. You know, this is such a big, this is where, and I say, you know, how to get new coaching clients, as I take you through this process and pulling it all together, is where people go wrong is, even if they're generating leads, like we talked to somebody who's generating leads, you know, some great conversions from Facebook ads, for instance, or even if people are reacting to your videos, or, you know, some of the things that you're doing online, or events, they're showing up at your events, you meet up events, for instance, or whatever, and, you know, they're responding favorably, and they're like, wow, this is fantastic, or thank you so much, right? Those types of things. Sometimes they will ask those questions that I said, you know, well, tell me more about your coaching, or, you know, how much do you charge, or what are more about your coaching packages? But a lot of times they don't say those things. They're having positive experiences. But where people go wrong with this phase is they don't carry it on, right? They don't carry it on to, you know, inquiring about this. One of my newer one-on-one mentoring clients, she's actually doing a meetup as well. And I said, hey, send me some of the meetup threads. This is what I do a lot with my coaching clients, is send me some of the meetup threads, or send me some of the conversations that you're doing when people join this group. You know, and I have the standard, you know, hey, thanks so much for joining. What's your motivation for, you know, joining this group? I do that with my Facebook group. You know, people join the group. I want to know why, you know, where they are, how they find me. You know, what's their motivation for wanting to join this group? There's a million other groups they can join and are probably already a part of. But why this group? You know, I want to understand that. So I understand why people are coming there, or what's attracting them. But then what I saw is, like, in the conversation, where she would take it would be that she would make a comment like, oh, great, you know, it's great to hear that you're here because of X, Y, and Z, you know, so great to have you, or, you know, hope to see you at one of my meetups, right? So this is where coaches tend to go wrong, is they don't start asking more questions. They don't start being curious. They don't start building that relationship, but also, as we said, building that relationship to start to really understand more of, you know, where's that person, what's they going through? Where's that need, so to speak, and the timing of that need? And that's why I really stress and take some time on this, is to really start to understand of where we can go. And earlier I said, and this is where the majority of my hours are spent in a given week, is creating these conversations. If you can see my email or my Facebook Messenger thread, because that's my primary platform, the only platform is Facebook. As I always recommend for business, is like, don't pick all the platforms, pick one platform, you know, where your target market most likely is. You know, so for me, it's Facebook. But if you saw my Facebook Messenger thread, and in certain groups or one-on-one, I'll show people this in my group mentoring program. I do this a lot to show you. I show you, these are the threads that I do every day. There's thousands of messages, and I'm literally going through, and I'm interacting with these people and getting to know them. And some people don't react at all. Some people don't respond at all. And some people get back and the conversation goes a little way, and sometimes it just goes far enough. And you know what? You're not always going to find this vast need, and this, you know, where you can assist them, where you know, potentially create an approach for them to hire you, you know, and that's okay. We're starting to get to know them. You want them to feel supported. You want them to feel like that you care. We do care, but this is part of the process that allows them to start to feel that way. This is what's going to make the difference of someone just joining your group or becoming part of your email community, etc., and they just are another name on the list. They're just another member in the group, so to speak. And the only interaction they have with you, or the only time they ever see you, is just when you post or comment in the group, right? So this more detailed interaction, what it does is it can potentially lead us to getting a new client. But even bigger than that is, if for whatever reason the need's not super strong, or especially most of the time what you'll find out is, if they're there, they have a need, but where it's really can be off is the timing just might not be right for them. Timing, people we say, right? Timing is everything. And it is, especially when it comes to getting new coaching clients. Timing is everything. So you've got to really understand that aspect of it. And because timing is everything, this is why it's so important to develop these relationships and especially get them into your circle, your community, so to speak, so you can be in front of them on demand, is because number one, if we create this relationship and they feel like you care and they feel like you've gotten to know them as an individual, they're much more likely to stick around, right? We can't get new coaching clients if the people we've attracted through these marketing activities aren't sticking around, you know? So if they're just joining your mailing list off a free offer, for instance, and then that's all they get from you with a little autoresponder, a few emails, and then if you never email your community or you never interact with them, you know, either your stuff's really valuable so they stay, or if it's not, then at some point they're just going to unsubscribe, and you know, when they get their email one time. So we need people to stick around and give them a reason to stick around, not just because we have relevant, specific information, but it's also because we get to know them a little bit and they feel important. And that can be hard as you start to grow. But if you do it on a regular basis, one at a time as it's happening, it's very easy to stay on top of that stuff, especially when you understand the importance of it. So I'm trying to share some of these aspects. These are things that I do in my business every day that lead me towards coaching clients. Because I want you to understand, I'll say it like this for the sake of conversation, the buying process, of the sales process of getting new clients is not necessarily happening right now as the people are coming into or being exposed to what you're offering them. The free offer, you know, the video, the call, the event, right? The timing might not be right for them. So it's so important that they're sticking around, and then you're consistently in front of them. So then when the timing is right, that's when it's like, hey, you know what? I do want to do this more. Or they start thinking about like, oh, I need some help. And the next thing you know, they go to their inbox and you're there, you know, or you're talking about the next event you're doing, or the call you're doing, or Facebook Live, or, you know, they're getting a notification from the group that they're in, you know, of yours. And they're like, oh, of course, Jeff, or of course, you know, whatever. And that's when they can reach out to you and they can talk to you, and the conversation can go from there. So starting to recognize the importance of developing these relationships, and then the constant communication and engagement. This is such a big piece of that, and those interactions that allow us to start to get to those two main things of the timing, you know, and the need. So now let's go beyond that, and this where we get to, you know, once they're in that marketing system, making sure that they're in that, if you will, marketing system or that circle. So if they're not there yet, and you're having these conversations, for instance, so if I'm doing something on Meetup, for instance, or for instance, if I'm having a conversation on YouTube, like I do a lot of stuff on YouTube in the sense where I just post my videos, but I get subscribers on there. So anytime someone subscribes to YouTube, it's good because whenever I post a video there, at least every week with my call recording, they're going to get an email saying, hey, Selling Coaching has posted a new video, right? So I will be in front of them, but if they're not on my email list or my Facebook group, that's where they're getting, you know, my emails are getting more personal things. There's interaction there. So I make sure, for instance, when that happens, when I get a new subscriber, I go over to that platform, because I'm not there all the time other than just posting a video every week. I make sure I go over there and just reach out to that person, and no matter where they are, if the needed timing is there, maybe I do make an approach and ask if they consider working with me based upon, you know, what I'm learning about them. But if not, or if they haven't already, I make sure I want to invite them, like, hey, have you checked out my free offer? You know, have you checked out my university, my website? Have you checked out my Facebook group? Or hey, I'd love to invite you over to my private Facebook group. Based on what you're saying, I'd love to. I have this great ultimate startup guide for new coaches that I think would be perfect for you. You know what I mean? So I invite them. I want to make sure that they're not just subscribed to, let's say, my YouTube channel, because they're missing out on that interaction. And I only have one touch on them every week. And one touch on someone every week is not enough. You've got to understand that. A lot of people who are, emailing their people, once a month with this, the quote newsletter, or even once a week, that's not enough. You need to be in front of your people on a daily basis. And that's why things like social media platforms are great, because it's a lot more socially acceptable to get 20, 30 notifications, for instance, a day in your email inbox from a Facebook group, versus if I were to send you 20, 30 emails a day, you'd be like, dude, this dude is insane, right? Nor could I actually do that. So that's why social media platforms are great groups like that, like a Facebook group, because you can be in front of those people every day. But making sure, if they're just getting one touch every week, like if they're subscribed to a YouTube channel, for instance, that's why I want to get them over into, at least my email and or my Facebook group, so I can be in front of those people. So it's making sure they're there. If you're doing something like a meetup, for instance, it's making sure, as we interact with those people, when it's appropriate, if they're coming to your events, you're making sure we're getting them on your email community. If they're in the group, we interact with them, getting those conversations over to email where it's appropriate. Inviting them over and making them aware of what you're doing, so they would naturally want to check out your website. So if you're posting in the discussion videos and or things you're writing, you can have a link back to your website so they can see, what you're doing. And people naturally will go there, and if it's compelling and it's relevant for them, and it's a great free offer, that lead capture, that's when you're going to find you're getting leads. You're getting people that are on your email community, and that's vitally important. And doing that process. And this is a big piece that you'll know will start working, because, and you'll know how effective your lead capture is, because if you're doing all these activities on a regular basis and getting your information out there, and you're driving people, for instance, like I said, to your website, and you've got those compelling free offer that people can opt in, so to speak, or join your Facebook group, on a daily basis, you'll be getting notifications, from, like, AWeber sends me an email every time someone subscribes on my website to my free offer. So I'm getting multiple emails, if not more, a day, with people that are subscribing. Same thing with joining my private Facebook group. So I know that the people that are going there are starting to see these things. People there that are, for instance, going to my YouTube channel, most of the time I find when I go and find out who they are, I've looked back and I've seen, like, oh, they just subscribed to my my free offer from my website, or they join my private Facebook group, because I have it well branded on that other platform, with links back to those places where I want people to go. So obviously they're seeing something that's interested to make them subscribe, and now they wanting to check out more, and they're obviously interested and it's relevant enough, or there's something about it that they're enjoying where they want to subscribe to my email and or join my private Facebook group, right? So these are the methods that, without this stuff, we can't do any of the other things that I'm talking about in terms of creating those conversations, and more importantly, knowing that when they come to us, like I said, most likely the majority of people, let's just say 9 out of 10 for the sake of an example, the timing isn't right now. But that doesn't mean the timing will never be right now. You just got to keep them long enough from those relationships, and be in front of them consistently enough through the email marketing, etc., to be in front of them. So when the timing is right now, you can create a conversation that leads to them hiring you and getting new clients. Now, the last phase that I'll go over here before I open it up for you is, for some thoughts, is that approach. And the approach comes when we find that, okay, in this conversation, this interaction that we're having with people, it comes when we find out that the timing is there and the need is there, right? And it's like, wow, they're really going after this. This is when this is how you get new clients. This is the crux of it all. You could do all that other stuff really, really well and flawlessly, but if this last phase doesn't work out, and this is where I find coaches can be very timid with this, where we approach, if we're not doing this, you're not gonna get new clients, or it's gonna be much slower. Assuming we've qualified them really well and we understand that timing and need, now is that point where we've got to ask. It's like really our duty, our obligation, I would call it, to say, I call it a needs-based approach. A needs-based approach means that I'm approaching you and asking you if you consider hiring me based upon what I'm hearing you say. That's it. It's because of the need you're telling me you have and what you're going after. And because you've told me right now is the right time for that, that's why I'm asking you if you'd consider hiring, or would you consider looking into hiring someone like myself, because this is what I do. This is what I help people with, right? When you get to that spot, it's a magical space. And this is the magical piece. This is the art of selling that I would say, is because there's no pushiness to it. There's no, you're not too early, you're not too late, or you're not ever there, never approaching, because you're in this perfect spot. Is like the only reason I'm asking is because I hear you challenged with this, and I hear you saying that you really, really want to go after it. And I'm hearing you say that the timing couldn't be better that you go after this right now. And this is what I do. And so because of that, I feel like I can't help but ask if you'd consider working with me or looking into hiring me as your coach, as your mentor coach, to see what we could do together, to see if there'd be value in that for you. Is this something you'd be willing to talk about? Is this something you'd be willing to consider? Is this something you'd be willing to look into more? These are the questions I'd ask. Obviously, not all of them. I'm trying to give you variations of it so you can feel comfortable in getting how we can approach that and broach the situation. But from there, it's a very natural progression if there is a progression. Meaning, if we're approaching like that, and then we follow it up with something along the lines of, even maybe you haven't identified the timing clearly enough, for instance, but you can tell they really want it. You can say, well, I don't know how the timing is for you right now, but I'm getting the sense that this is really important for you. And I'm perfectly fine with you saying no, or it's okay if for whatever reason this doesn't interest you at this time. But again, I felt compelled to ask, or I almost feel like I had to ask, because I see what you're going after, and I can tell you want it bad enough, and I know I can assist you with this. Showing them that confidence that we know we can assist them. And maybe you're not at that spot yet. Maybe you're still working on that confidence piece, but practicing saying that, and this is going to lead to you, again, getting more clients, which is ultimately only going to give you that confidence. So knowing the language I'm using here it's very important. The words I'm choosing, they're not just things that are coming off the top of my head. These are things that obviously I say and do on a regular basis, and that work in getting new coaching clients, because I've taken them to this spot, and I've identified where they're at, what they're going after. And I'm making a genuine approach with that, and there's a reason for it. And I always say that, and that's where that needs-based approach comes in. And then you can follow up from there. But this is the element that gets us to the spot of having the potential to get a new client. Because if we never get to here, if we never approach this, then we never have the opportunity of getting a new client. And I'm telling you, the more you do this, in other words, this is swinging the bat at the baseball, so to speak. But it's knowing that it's not just taking it for a chance. It's a qualified ask, right? Because we've understood these things. And if there's a consideration there, then the next phase is now we can go to the complimentary session. And where I find the people I've interacted with and the coaches I've worked with, and this is what I was doing wrong when I started, was I was jumping too quickly into the complimentary session. I was going too quick into that. I was like, hey, I'm just giving them out like, it's like free candy, It's just like, well, wait a minute, slow down a little bit, before I start giving away this valuable thing. What we can do is let's understand, why I'm even offering this to you. You can't offer someone even something that's free. We don't want to offer someone something free if they don't need it, because even if it's free, they don't value it, right? If there's no need for someone, they don't value it. And the whole premise of buying anything is that someone needs something. And so even if you're at the phase where practicing coaching, you're going through a coaching school, and you're offering complimentary sessions because you need practice, and you're not charging for your coaching, right? I did a call on this several weeks ago as well. You can check out in the university where how to charge for your coaching versus offering it for free. And I went into around the premise of, even if you're giving it away for free, right? Still take them through and learn this qualifying process, process of how to get new clients, the art of selling that I'm talking about here today. Because even if you're giving it away for free, like, they're not going to do it just for the hell of it. Like, sure, I'll coach with you because I want to just give away an hour of my time every week for nothing. You know what I mean? It's just like they're doing it because there's a reason. There's some value in it for them. Even if it's free, you've got to understand why you're offering it to them. So even if you're doing something like that, think about it like this. If I'm going to offer someone a complimentary session, whether it's going to lead to paid or whether it's going to lead to me, practicing for free, doing more with them, is in conversations and through things that I'm doing. Like I said, talking about more of my message or what I'm doing as a coach. I'm not specifically as a coach, but what I'm helping people with, and that education. What happens from there is we can create those conversations, and then we'd have to, before we offer them anything, we want to offer it based upon something. Don't just be offering it just for the heck of it. I used to offer, and I get questions like this from my clients right now who are doing like live events, like meetups and stuff. I get some questions around, should I just offer a complimentary session at the end? And I used to do this in my events, like, should I just say, hey, anyone who wants a complimentary coaching session, let me know, and I'm happy to give you a free complimentary session, right? So the reason I don't recommend doing something like that is we've got to, let's value this complimentary session, this discovery session, whatever you guys call that, as something that's like, this is like me actually working with you. This is hugely valuable, and I will certainly do that to you, but let me only offer it to you when I find out what's going on. If you did do something like that, like you have on your website, like, hey, schedule a discovery session or a free 15-minute strategy session, or if you are giving away a complimentary session, for instance, at the end of an event. Again, I wouldn't tell you not to do that per se. I've done it in the past, but the way I did it is when I offered it, is if people accepted that, then what I would do is I would start to qualify them. I stopped doing it because I started to understand it was a bit backwards. Why am I offering something that I'm just going to qualify them for in the first place? But it is, in some ways, it is a way of drawing out, if someone's going to say yes to that, we want to understand out, well, why are they saying yes, right? Well, hey, here's this free thing I'm offering. Yeah, sure, I'd love that. Okay, great. Why did you want that free thing? Same thing with joining my private Facebook group, joining your meetup group, joining, subscribing to your mailing list for your free offer. That's why I always ask people, well, why did you want this, right? I say, what's your motivation for joining the group or wanting this offer? I want to find out. That's a free action. They saw something they liked. Well, why did you like it? Why did you respond? Why did you sign up? Why did you join? Why did you attend? Why did you react? This is starting those conversations, and I just wanted to pull it full circle. We've got to start to understand, where they're coming from, because now, again, that's going to go ultimately into that need. So if we're giving those things out and they're accepting, okay, well, why did you want this? And we understand that need, because what I would do is when I did offer those complimentary sessions at events, as an example, and I started to qualify people, it doesn't mean I gave them out all the time. A lot of the times I found out that, the timing of what they were going after was definitely not right. And even what they were going after, even though they wanted it, it was just like, yeah, maybe it wasn't bad enough yet, or maybe it just wasn't big enough yet, but it just, they were kind of lukewarm about it. And it's just like, you know what, why don't we do this in a time where, like, you really need something, or you really want to go after something, or I can tell that your motivation is not there. I can tell that there's just nothing behind this right now. And sometimes that would lead towards them saying, yeah, no, wait, no, there is something going on. But if it wasn't, then we just kind of went our separate ways and potentially followed up. But that's what I want to help you avoid when you get to this spot, is if you avoid a lot of the things that I'm talking about, what happens is you get to this spot way too quickly, didn't qualify them, don't understand why they're there. They don't really even know that they're there because they're not considering hiring you, and you're thinking, oh my God, I gotta potentially got a new client. And now they're bagging the calls, they're not showing up, they're not even giving the courtesy of letting you know. They fall off the face of the planet, they join the witness protection program. and or they take the call and then they're just giving you all these objections like I don't have the money, I got to think about this and all this BS stuff that we know doesn't actually factor in, because when there's value there, people buy. Cost doesn't matter.